I'm picking the Chiefs. I've gone back and forth because I agree that the physicality of the Philadelphia Eagles on both lines, offensive and defensive, that's going to be a lot. But I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I think a kingdom becomes a dynasty. And Andy Reid enters into that pantheon of all-time great coaches.
I mean, that's not up for my judgment. You know, I was hoping he would let it go, but of course, you know, he's a ref. It's a big game, and it was a hold, so they called it.
When I ask you this, I'm not asking you this. I'm not trolling. I'm not being facetious. I'm not being sarcastic. But seriously, are you mad, bro? Because I mean, the top of your feed, I felt the anger through your feed. So are you still? Was that in the moment? Are you still upset? Like, so when I say you mad, bro, I mean it sincerely. Like, you feel robbed, dare I say it, by that holding call on James Bradberry, which he himself owned?
Well, look, we don't have. Can we play it? Are we allowed to play it? Can we play that? That. It's not our game, I know, but just in case we have the film. Look, James Bradberry is being a great teammate, so I'll start with him. He's being a great teammate. He is saying, here it is. It's 3rd and 8. I'm counting the yards. 1, 2, 3. I mean, come on. Come on, bro. I mean, come on, man. Look. This is an all-time Michael. This is an all-time great Super Bowl. And let me tell you, I can't get into details right now to really illustrate. It's a little tease. I can't get into details right now to illustrate how I was good with any result. Trust me, both results worked in my favor. Both results go work in my favor. So it had nothing to do with my bets, your money. It had nothing to do with I picked the Eagles to win it, any of that stuff. I was, like the rest of the world, enjoying a beautifully played, to that point, beautifully officiated game, a masterpiece, a classic. It was like, hey Mike, it would be like 3 or 4 of your favorite rappers getting together in a cypher and doing a freestyle. And some dude comes in saying a 3, 2, 1, a 1, 2, 3, yeah. I'm like, yo, man, you just messed up the vibe. You killed the vibe. And the last thing I'll say is, if I needed a car battery salesman, I'll call Carl Sheffers. That's what he does in his day job. Seriously, I can't make this up. He's a car battery salesman. I need a car battery salesman.
Feels a little below.
Hey, no, it's not. No. Hey, where's the lie? Where's the lie? Look him up. He did a story.
Feels unnecessary.
He did a story. Hey, listen, it's a story in USA Today. I ain't make it up. I didn't know what he did for a living until he told USA Today. He told the world that he's a car battery salesman. So a couple weeks ago here in Boston, it was -4 degrees, and I may have called a brother at that time when the car wouldn't turn over. I need Carl Sheffers when my car won't start on a -4 degree day. But when it's a masterpiece game, when it is the best Super Bowl I've seen in my life, I don't need this hack to come in and call that. Because let me ask you this, Mike. You think that was the first time that happened? Was that the first time that happened yesterday?
No, I mean, they missed one on Juju early in the game. They missed one on Juju early in the game, and it was not called. So look, man, as I said in my feed, it was wrong, but it was correct. Okay.
How so?
Like,
how so?
It didn't feel right. You know, it's funny. The last time we talked about a call, I believe you looked at me like I was crazy, like I was some kind of hack.
Because it was obvious.
When I had a problem.
Yeah, it was obvious.
When I had an issue with the call at the Eagles at the end of the Bengals Chiefs game with Joseph Asai. The unnecessary roughness call at the end of that game when he hit Patrick Mahomes out of bounds when he was going full speed. I didn't like it. It didn't feel right. That felt like a let them play moment to me. But as you and many others pointed out, that was the call you had to make. So I don't know if I'm being inconsistent or consistent here, or maybe I'm asking for consistency from you guys here when I say, yeah, it felt like a bad time for that call. But if it's a call in the first quarter, it's a call in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry. It was holding. And I'm not just saying it because Bradberry said it. In the moment, it was holding. When I saw the replay, I know Olsen lost his mind on the broadcast. It was holding. And it was unfortunate, but it was holding. It was holding.
It wasn't.
Listen, Michael.
I mean,
listen,
okay, how about this?
Okay, let me hold on. Let me say this. It was holding, but but was it a penalty? See, here's the thing about defensive holding, and for that matter, illegal contact. It is the most ticky-tack call in all of sports, definitely in the NFL. Defensive holding and illegal contact are way too ticky-tack for my liking the way it's called in 2022 and 2023. And to your point, did it happen early in the game? Probably. Probably happens on every play, just like holding on an offensive line happens almost every play. So it is by nature a ticky-tack and close call. Had he swallowed his whistle, held his flag, swallowed his whistle, basketball, had he kept the flag in his pocket in that moment, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. This was nowhere near as egregious as the pass interference that was not called at the end of the NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Saints. And this was not a moment like Terry McLaurin earlier in the season where, illegal formation, when he checks with the line judge and is like, hey, am I good? This wasn't like that. This was holding. Did it feel good for it to be called at the end of one of the greatest Super Bowls we've ever seen? No, it didn't feel good, but it was correct.
Well, listen, if you, I followed you until you said it was correct, because you said it was holding. Sure. So sure. Right. You said it's holding. Yep. It was holding. He held him. Was it a penalty? No. Did he hold him? Yes.
You may not have called it.
Was it a penalty?
It wasn't a phantom penalty.
He shouldn't have called it.
Okay, well
it kind of was. It kind of was.
So he shouldn't have called it. So let me ask you this: he shouldn't have called it because of the circumstances, the stakes, the stage, or he shouldn't have called it because it wasn't enough to impede Juju's progress? Right.
He shouldn't have called it. Period. Any point. That is that type of pushing.
If that's your argument, I can respect that.
But here's the thing.
The argument that it's a Super Bowl and the Super Bowl shouldn't come down to that, and it's like, you ruin the Super Bowl. Like, no, you make the call that you see. But if you're saying it shouldn't have been called, I respect it. I respect that.
Here's the thing. Here's my problem. This is why I'm not going to buy batteries from him. Okay.
No, but see, you got an official. You talk about the officials. The only thing we should be killing the NFL for today is the field. The field that they spent $80,000 on.
The field was a joke too.
It was running.
It's embarrassing.
It was running it. So more embarrassing than the officiating. I get it. Everybody wants to talk about the script. The field was awful.
They're connected.
And that was the worst part of the Super Bowl, not this call.
They're connected. And and big picture, in all seriousness, I love the guy. I love the fact that he sells batteries. I mean, I just go on that all day. But they really are it's a connected story. The NFL it's like a lot of misguided multi-billion-dollar corporations where they have their priorities all out of whack, where a CEO or commissioner can make $60 million plus, but the rank and file employees have to scratch and claw for an extra week of vacation. The rank and file employees have to read emails about, hey, don't use so much toilet paper when you go to the bathroom. We got to conserve it. Look, you can't be a multi-billion-dollar serious organization and then have a field that looks like that, that's so embarrassing, and have, part-time officials. Now, if you have full-time officials, do they make that call? Yes,
probably.
A full-time official can make that mistake.
Yes.
Can make that mistake.
So much.
But I got it. I know everybody said, are you saying that a full-time official doesn't make mistakes? No. I'm saying that if you want to be elite across the board, if you want to be the best of the best, do everything, spare no expense to make sure everything is professional. The NFL will do that in some cases, but not in others. The field and the officials last night.
They spent $80,000 on the field. It was not $80,000 well spent. The field was a disaster. The field was an embarrassment. The officiating, you can't say that the full-time official would have made the same call, because the part-time, full-time argument, which I
just
agree
said
with,
that. I'm not saying that.
No, I'm saying that's contradictory. The part-time, full-time argument about officials, and I don't want to spend that much time on it because I think it takes away from a great game, with some kind of perpetuating what your feed says. Like, we're taking away from it now, the time we spend on it. But I will say this: the part-time, full-time argument speaks to incompetence. That would be like, oh, well, if you'd have spent more time on your job, maybe you'd know the rules. Or if you spent more time on your job, maybe, it's a credibility thing for me. It's a credibility thing. Like you said, they spare no expense on a lot of things. Get more cameras, get full-time officials, so we can't make this argument. But where this argument falls short is when you say, and I say, and we say, a full-time official would have made the same call, because they have full-time supervisors and full-time people working in New York on Park Avenue, I still believe it is, I haven't been there in a while, who are telling them to make that call. That's the call that they have to make. Now, if you want to say that that quarterbacks are protected too much, that there's not enough, you missed the days of Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes when you could touch receivers, then that's one thing. But that was the right call.
Where was that early in the game?
Poor, bad time.
Where was that?
Maybe it should have been called early in the game.
But I'm saying it's like, okay, I think the best officials are ones who will tell you, hey, I'm not going to, especially, it happens a lot in basketball, the sport that I covered first sport I covered on a professional basis was basketball. And I used to hear it all the time. NBA officials would say to a guy in the first quarter, okay, now look, I saw you put your elbow here in his back, a little high. I'm going to call that. I'm just letting you know. You do that again, I'm going to call it. Okay, I got it. So it's a feeling out, it's a conversation throughout the game. You mean to tell me, and look, I don't know, I haven't watched the coach's film, I'm not Chris Sims up in here, but you mean to tell me that James Bradberry never had that kind of hand fighting 3-4 yards from the line of scrimmage with Juju Smith-Schuster,
maybe
with
they missed
Kadarius
it. They don't get
Okay, so where was that? Where was that?
Okay, Mike.
Call it then. Why are you doing that now?
They may have missed it. You want to swallow the whistle because it's the Super Bowl. You do say, okay, you
no,
said you
would
find with the outcome.
I think that's
you said you would find with the outcome.
I don't want to.
You sound like somebody who thinks that this game was decided on that play. And last I checked, the Eagles yesterday became the second team ever. You didn't say it.
I didn't say
you said it. I said you sound
let me help you.
Like somebody who thinks that this game was decided on that. Because of course they missed the calls earlier.
Can I help you?
They're gonna miss calls. They didn't get them all. But to say why you calling it there, he called it because it was holding. He called it because of holding.
Okay. This is what I think.
If he didn't call it, a bunch of people complaining about it, Michael.
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. It was like we see that. We see that type of. We see that type of pushing. We see that type of grab and then let go.
What were you about to say before I said that, though? You responded to me. What were you about to say?
What I was going to say was, what I feel is we deserve better. That's how I feel. The game. Either team could have won it. Both teams are great. Both teams are great. I enjoyed the Super Bowl immensely. I was shocked and stunned and deeply disappointed, profoundly disappointed that somebody whose life is not affected by this now, he's going back to his business. I'm not even joking now. He's going back to his business. All right. This is not haunting him. This is not in him. And he jumped in. He jumped in, a masterpiece. Get out of here.
Or James Bradberry could not have held Juju Smith-Schuster. But that's okay. Listen, I would have loved to have seen the Eagles. It's so funny. You feel about this Super Bowl the way I felt after last year's divisional round game, where I wanted to rewrite the overtime rules, and I was on my overtime kick. It's kind of like that. Like you feel like you were robbed. Like I would have liked to have seen the Eagles get the ball again with more time and see if Jalen Hurts.
Exactly.
Let's see what happens. If I were voting, I'd have had co-MVPs because that's a stat line unlike any we've ever seen by a quarterback in Super Bowl history. With all due respect to Patrick Mahomes, so I'll get to in a second, literally in a second, Jalen Hurts was brilliant. I would have loved to have seen him have a chance to see if he could drive down the field a tie, if not win the game. But to me, I don't look at that and say we were robbed because it's like, okay, it was holding. I hated the timing, but you know what? That's the game. Them be the breaks. What I was about to say was, last time I checked, the Eagles became the second team ever to blow a 10-point lead at halftime in the Super Bowl. The other being, of course, the Atlanta Falcons. That's number one. They gave up a defensive score.
There's more where that's coming from.
They damn near gave up a special team score. Okay?
Yeah.
So, and in the second half, what happened to their defense? And meanwhile, for all the talk about the Eagles' offensive line and defensive line for that matter, the Chiefs' offensive line did not give up a sack to one of the greatest pass rushers in recent memory and definitely the best pass rusher in the league. So and on a gimpy ankle, with a quarterback on a gimpy ankle, the play we should be talking about. Forget the damn holding call. The 26-yard scramble to put them down there. They were taking the lead regardless. They were taking the lead regardless.
That's fine.
It was a matter of how
could
much
have
time
happened.
they was going to have left. And they were taking the lead
clear,
because that man and that entire team, offensively and defensively, took over in the second half. So I don't give a damn about one holding call. The Chiefs took that game away from Philadelphia because the Chiefs were the better team. Full stop. No qualifier, no asterisk, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
There's no asterisk. I'm not putting that in there. I'm not putting all that in there. I'm not going there. They deserve their respect. And look, just to be clear, I don't know what would have happened if they don't call that. I don't know.
Right.
So it's 3rd and 8. They go for a field goal. They make a field goal there.
Right.
It's about a minute and 50. About a minute and 50 left.
But that's the point. You don't know. They could have gone down and scored a touchdown.
I just feel like
you don't know.
He got in the way. I feel like he got in the way. And it's not like, oh, don't call it. He just got in the way. It was so unnecessary. I don't like officials in any sport who do things that are not required. It was not required. It was not, hey, the league office is going to call you. It wasn't. The league office is not going to call you.
So okay, all right. You don't want to let this go. So you're saying that he's supposed to pick and choose when to make a call.
That's why. Let me just say it.
Oh,
yeah. That's what it was.
Michael,
that's what it was.
Wait, I'm the profane person on it. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it. That's what it was.
It sounds weird
and he
coming
knows
out of your mouth. Are Robinson,
he knows.
and Ava
And you know what?
right now?
And they might be listening. They might be in the car. They might be in the car.
What about the kids?
Do as I say.
Oh my God.
Hey, do as I say. Do as I say, not as I do. And Mike, let me just say the last thing I say.
It just
I'm not
with
one.
Your chest too. Ooh.
Hey Mike, I'm not one generally to call for somebody's job because people, got families to feed and they got things to do. But he should be fired because he got another job. He should be fired from his part-time job. Part-timer, get out of here. Go back, sell your batteries. That's what you know. What you don't know is what you called yesterday. So he should be fired. See you later. Screwed up a great Super Bowl.
He did not. It was still a great Super Bowl. It
was great. It could have been greater. It could have been a more perfect union.
Mar the game for me.
It could have been a more perfect
the game. Okay.
A more perfect union.
And I don't know. Maybe it's because you were really in the first half. You were getting your hot takes ready to come tell me you told me so about Philadelphia.
No.
I don't know.
I'm telling you.
I'm
going to tell you off the air, man.
I'm going to
tell you off the air. No. I'm not hurt.
You sure?
I'll tell you off the air. This will come to pass eventually. This was a big win for the Hollies last night. I'm just going to say that. It was a big win for us. So it has nothing to do with, hey, my prediction. Travis Kelce has nothing to do with my prediction, Travis, because I picked Philadelphia. But I know a lot of people.
Oh, my God. Travis Kelce. What?
Including my man right here who picked Kansas City. So who's y'all? Who is y'all?
Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, was he listening to Trick Daddy? Because I ain't heard nobody say Nan. Ain't Nan one of y'all.
Nan one of y'all.
What is Travis Kelce?
Who are you talking about? The line was what? Was it Eagles by a point and a half or two?
This is like LeBron talking about I want my damn respect. Like, come on, man. Ain't nobody disrespecting you. Okay, but you gotta admit. Now maybe Travis just had maybe not keeping up with it or whatever. You gotta admit. If you'd have told me that coming into the season, when one of the biggest question marks, not just with the Kansas City Chiefs, but with the entire throughout the league, like storylines heading into the 2022 season, is how are the Chiefs going to replace Tyreek Hill?
Yeah.
And not only would they go on to have the #1 offense, but Patrick Mahomes would lead the league in passing yards, be the first person to ever lead the league in passing yards and win the Super Bowl. That's never happened before this year. He would end the MVP jinx. He's the first MVP since Kurt Warner to go on and win the Super Bowl. That was back in '99. Every MVP since then has not won the Super Bowl. If you'd have said that team would go on to win the Super Bowl after trading away Tyreek Hill, that's where the Chiefs were underestimated. But very soon after that, early in the season and throughout the season, they won 14 freaking games. So they weren't underdogs. But
right.
I would say that coming into the season, they were somewhat doubted. And we can come back to this later. I said last week, and we played it off the top of the show, I think dynasties do come in many different shapes and sizes. All right? Are they the Patriots dynasty, the Steelers dynasty, the Niners dynasty? No. But 2 Super Bowls in 3 years? Is it 3 years? No, 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. I beg your pardon. 4 years.
Yes, 2 and
2
4,
Super Bowls
yeah.
in 4 years. 5 straight home AFC title games. 3 Super Bowl appearances. 2 MVPs and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. 5 Pro Bowls and 3 All-Pros by the time he's 27 for that guy. This is, I'm a paraphrase Benny the Butcher. This is year 5 in the beginning of a 10-year run. Like, this is a dynasty. You know who is a dynasty? It could be the 90s Cowboys very soon. And that kind of dynasty, a little mini dynasty. Or if you go to the
3
NBA,
and 4.
if you ask the Detroit Pistons, the Pistons consider themselves a dynasty in the NBA.
That's stupid.
So,
okay, they're dumb.
well, but they do.
That's stupid.
But they do.
Okay, that's stupid.
I'm just
They're
using
not.
it as a
No,
for
they
instance.
weren't. Okay, okay.
Well, they're
you
not
win
the
back-to-back
Celtics, they're not the
championship.
Lakers, they're not the Spurs.
Yeah, okay,
but
so they're not.
they had their time.
So they weren't.
They had their time.
Okay, this is what I would say. And I know we got company waiting. I don't want to keep company waiting. I would say this, and I said this before the game. I usually think it's 3 in the NFL. NBA is maybe different, but in the NFL, I think it's 3. And so they are in the waiting room. They expect their name to be called. It will be an upset if their name is not called. If they don't win it next year, but they win it the year after, absolutely. If they don't win it next year, the year after, but they win it the year after that, yes. I'd say, because the Steelers in the 70s, 4-6, right? 4-6 for the Steelers.
Patriots are in another category altogether.
3.
Like, you know.
Cowboys 3 and the Cowboys were 3 and 4.
The Packers of the 60s.
Packers.
Well, see, I see the Cowboys. I see the Cowboys and the Patriots, but there was one quarterback. Those are different. Those are sustained levels of excellence that I don't know that we'll see very often, if ever again. I'm talking about for like a snapshot. And
you mean the Patriots?
Patrick Mahomes.
You mean the Patriots won or the Cowboys?
Well, both. Like,
because I look
years. Like I'm talking.
I look
about
at them
20,
as different.
There was over like 20 years. Or like the Niners, when they passed it from Montana to Young, the Patriots, although with one quarterback and one coach, the Cowboys. We're talking about like 2 decades. Or in the NBA, you're talking about the Spurs. When I think of the
Which
Lakers
Cowboys?
dynasty, it's like, well,
which Cowboys you talking about?
saying.
Landry Cowboys?
No, I'm talking about both. But I'm talking about that's what I'm saying. Like, I think a 3 and 4 is different from the Landry plus. I mean, they had a break in there, but the Cowboys as an organization, organizationally, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, obviously they took a break. Not so much in the 80s, but then in the 90s, right? One of the flagship franchises.
They took a break in the 80s.
They took a big one. No, they took a break. Absolutely did. But conveniently, I'm combining them. The Steelers, same thing. 70 Steelers, break, then they come back and they add a couple more championships, right? It's like there are certain organizations that they may take a pause in there. Spurs kind of had a little quick dip and then bam, here we are, we're back again. It's like some organizations have pauses, but they have a sustained level of excellence that I don't know that you can expect somebody to achieve very often, if ever again. But I mentioned the 90s Cowboys because maybe these Chiefs are more akin to the 90s Cowboys. So I was really using both of them as an example.
But yeah, I like what you're doing there. But you know what? I think they're more akin to the Patriots because this is what the Patriots did. And I'll use the Patriots as an example because the Niners, different league, no salary cap. Like Joe Montana never had to deal with the salary cap, and Steve Young didn't until like 1990, 4 or 5. So they didn't have to deal with free agency. They had Plan B free agency, all this stuff. Different league. But the Patriots, this is a dynasty that had a front door and a back door. So that is a multi-level, hey, come to our second floor. Hey, you see our backyard? Like a dynasty that has three in the front and 3 in the back over a 20-year span. I think that's where Kansas City has the potential to go. I think Kansas City could be there.
Especially now that Andy's not going anywhere. Absolutely. I just think they come in different shapes and sizes. If you're going to define a dynasty based on the Patriots or based on the Celtics, then it's like you're going to talk about 1 or 2 teams. I don't think I'm watering down the definition of a dynasty by suggesting that a team that's had 5 straight NFC title games is 2 overtimes away from 5 Super Bowls. I know they don't give you trophies for that, but nonetheless, okay? Now 2 in 4 years, this is a dynasty in its own right. But even if you want to call it a dynasty in the making, whatever, like I said, year 5 in the beginning of a 10-year run. We're both saying the same thing there. Jim Trotter kind enough to join us. I don't know if you're on your way to drop an album.
Whoa, come on, fellas. Y'all know my new name. I have filed the paperwork for my new name. Okay? I am now Boo Trotter. I'm telling y'all. I had a moment with Riri last night after the performance, and she referred to me as Boo. So I am now Boo Trotter. The internet the video is online. You can find it, but I am legally changing my name.
Well, that's great. So your mama named you Jim. I'm gonna call you Jim. I ain't about to call no grown man Delicious, and I ain't about to call no grown man Boo. So,
hey, Delicious.
That's nice.
Hold up. Hold up, man. Hold up.
That's great that you had a moment with Riri. That's great. But I ain't calling you Boo. So James.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
James is the official name, by the way.
There you go. What do you call Andy Reid?
Let me say first off, man, I love seeing y'all in person in Phoenix, seeing you all, seeing Matt, all of that. It was a pleasure. It was an honor. So anyway, I don't mean to hold this up. Let's get to it. What you got?
No, it was good to see you too, man. It was great to see you. Always great to see you. Now I was going to ask, what do you call Andy Reid at this point? Now that he's got these 2 Super Bowl titles, defeated the team that he's also the all-time winningest coach for. What kind of pantheon does this put Andy Reid in?
Oh, I've always thought he belonged up in the upper echelon, even prior to this game. Andy Reid is just a phenomenal coach. When you look at the type of sustained success that he had in Philadelphia, and then you look at him and the type of sustained success that he has had, in Kansas City, to me, I don't use this word often with coaches because I think it gets thrown around a lot, but Andy Reid is a genius, man. When you look at his offensive philosophies and the way that he's been able to adapt them with different quarterbacks and whatnot, I think he's just special, man. So for me, he has been and always will be in that upper echelon of coaches.
So with that in mind, Jim, having said that, so you got Shane Steichen any minute. Looks like he's about to be the head coach of the Colts. You got Jonathan Gannon interviewing with Arizona. We all know why, but I just got to continue to point this out as I know we all will continue to point it out. So Eric Bieniemy now has 2 Super Bowl titles alongside aforementioned Andy Reid and still does not have the title of head coach. And I'm like, well, Arizona or Indianapolis, it ain't too late to schedule another interview if you need to. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Like Michael and I just finished going back and forth about whether or not the Chiefs qualify as a dynasty yet. Or maybe they're just a dynasty in the making and on their way. It's like throughout NFL history, every time a team has this kind of success, organizations are falling over themselves just to touch the hem of their garment, just to have a piece of it. Like, I want the guy who has mentored Patrick Mahomes. I want the guy whose offense did not give up a sack against the Philadelphia Eagles pass rush. I want the guy whose offense scored on every possession in the second half against that vaunted Eagles defense. It's like, make this make sense.
Well, let me say this to you, Mike, before I get into that. Look, I think we can all agree black folk are treated differently in the NFL. Black coaches are treated differently in the NFL than their counterparts, and the numbers reflect that. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Having said that to you, and it pains me to say this, I don't think Eric Bieniemy will ever be a head coach in the NFL. I truly don't. Yeah. Here's what happens. Like, so number one, you have some GMs who will say to you, or front office people who will say to you, well, he didn't interview well. And I've talked to some about this, and I push back on it and say, what does that mean? And the way they explain it makes no sense to me. So I'm not even going to go into that. But secondarily, what happens, and this is not just applicable to the NFL, but to corporations in general, when you have someone who is identified as being qualified and capable to do a job, and yet teams keep passing him or her, in this case him, then potential employers start to say, well, if they didn't hire him, it must be something wrong. So therefore, I'm not going to go down that road. Yeah, and I think that Eric Bieniemy is now facing that. I truly believe that for Eric Bieniemy to have any chance to be a head coach in the NFL, he has to leave Andy Reid, and he has to have success elsewhere. And if he doesn't, people are going to continue to attribute all that has happened in Kansas City to Andy Reid. They will never give Eric Bieniemy his due. And that is unfortunate, and that is sad, but that is the reality of the NFL today.
But you know what you just did, Michael? I'm sorry. You know what you just did? And well, you didn't do it. But you and I both know, we all know, even then, Jim, even if he does go somewhere else as an offensive coordinator, and does a phenomenal job, they'll move the goalpost again. Like, it's always, if you do this, something else, or if you do this, or well, you got to do this. It's like, yo, every offensive coordinator that's ever coached for Andy Reid has been a head coach.
Preach, Reverend.
You're
preaching good, Reverend. Preach it.
And if it's because, Jim, if it's because he got too much New Orleans in him, if it's his accent, it's the way he talks, you know, and he's interviewed, man. There's absolutely no legitimate reason.
It's his pigmentation, and you know that.
I know. Look, the NFL. But the whole interview well thing. What does that mean? Come on, you know.
They say silly things like, well, we asked him about a play that happened in a game at a certain time. He couldn't recall that and the details of it and whatnot, but yet this other person, including Shane Steichen, who one GM has mentioned me, boy, his interview was great. He could recall this, he could recall that. And I said, see, this is where you guys get in trouble. Number one, let me ask you, what are the traits you want in a head coach? You want someone who can recall a play from 5 years ago, or do you want someone who can lead men, who can motivate men, who can teach, you know, who can manage games and manage people, those sorts of things. And so that's why all of this frustrates me. And you guys know I've written extensively about this. It drives me nuts. But you're right. They will move the goalposts again. And for the commissioner to get up at his press conference and say that they have made significant improvements in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion across the league, we are 1 year out from their accelerator initiative, which was supposed to improve the situation with coaches and GMs, black coaches and GMs. We are a net zero in terms of black head coaching hires, and we are a +1 in terms of black GM hires. Does that sound like significant improvement to you? Because it doesn't to me.
See, look, here's my problem, and we got to stop. I know we don't do this, but the NFL cannot call itself a meritocracy because things like last night don't matter to general managers and owners. Last night, Eric Bieniemy put on a clinic in the second half against Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon is going for a head coaching interview. And on his way to the head coaching interview, guess who he talked to? Ain't nobody. He ain't talked to nobody. Okay, so he avoided the media last night. He's got a lot to answer for. I'm not even a Philly fan or a Philly reporter. I got a lot of stuff I want to ask him about. He has nothing to say. Eric Bieniemy just played chess, checkers, and every other type of game on his forehead last night. So that's one. The other thing is, Jim and Mike, I can recall plays from 10 years ago, 15 years ago in detail. I can't coach a lick. So that doesn't mean anything. What you can recall doesn't mean anything. What happens on the field? Are you able to develop players? Are you able to make them better? And this is the last thing I'll say. It's not even a question. I'll just say it to you guys because Mike started to get into it brilliantly. Look, if I'm Eric Bieniemy, if I'm happy in Kansas City, I stay. I'm staying. I'm not leaving because it will look like I'm doing something else and I will excite ownership groups. No, ownership groups are not excited by me. They won't be excited by me if I go somewhere else and we have the number one offense in the league. If I go to the Houston Texans and they have the number one offense in the league, they're still going to look at me sideways. So I'm going to go where I'm happy. And if he's happy in Kansas City, I think he should stay there.
Can I say this to you? And I've said this before, but I want to make the point, drive the point home. I have called Eric Bieniemy the modern day Sherm Lewis. And I believe that in my heart because Sherm Lewis was more than qualified to be a head coach in the NFL back in the day. He was with the Green Bay Packers when on staff underneath him. He's the offensive coordinator with the Packers on the Mike Holmgren staff. Underneath him, he had John Gruden. He had Andy Reid. He had Mike Sherman. He had Mariucci. And there was one other, Marty Morningwig. All of these guys were under him. Every one of them got a head coaching job, and Sherm Lewis never did. And I remember when I was writing a piece on this one time, I tried to reach out to Sherm multiple times, and he would not return the call. And I talked to some of his friends, and I said, why won't Sherm talk to me? And they said, probably because it's too painful. And so when I look at Eric Bieniemy, I see the same thing, a guy who is overqualified now and who has earned an opportunity to be a head coach in this league, but because of the limited, or how should I say this, come out because of the pigmentation of his skin, he is not getting the opportunity that he has earned. Not that he deserves, but that he has earned.
And it's like, man, and we've been talking about this since 2 years ago when it was him versus Byron Leftwich, in the Super Bowl. And for all the talk about the quarterback matchup, probably the more miraculous one by NFL standards, that there were two black offensive coordinators opposing each other a couple of years ago, given how rare it is for a black person to be in that room where it happens to begin with. And you and I got to talk about Jim Caldwell offline too, man. I spent some time with him this weekend. I know you know all about him.
No, can I say this real quick about Jim? What people don't understand is they see this quiet guy on the sideline or whatever, and they think there isn't a presence about him.
That ain't him.
You spend 1 second with Jim Caldwell. I don't know that I've seen a more impressive man when it comes to commanding a room and therefore commanding a team. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but make your point.
No. I was going to save it for another day, but today is as good as any day. So I'm glad you said that. Organizationally, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to philosophy, when it comes to communication, when it comes to X's and O's, recall, all the things we're talking about, Jim Caldwell's got it all. One in Detroit, of course, and Stafford, Flacco, Peyton Manning, ask him about him. But what I was going to say about Eric Bieniemy was just this. It's like, what's the downside? It's like, people who are far less qualified than him, but who have the complexion for the protection, get to fail. Like, there is absolutely no guarantee that Shane Steichen, apart from Jalen Hurts, is going to succeed. So if there's no guarantee that any of them are going to succeed. But if I'm going to take a chance, wouldn't I take a chance on a dude that's been with Andy Reid? And you best believe, if Eric Bieniemy was somehow just being propped up, was somehow not the secret to their success, or did not have a role in their sustained excellence, you don't think Andy Reid would have replaced him by now? If he was holding them back
Michael,
somehow, how much better could you be the number one offense in the league?
We have talked so much about Patrick Mahomes and now his stature in this league, not only today, but historically. When you ask Patrick about Eric, he tells you that this is a man who is a leader, who commands the room, who has earned an opportunity to be a head coach. So you've got Andy Reid and you got Patrick Mahomes, two of the most respected people in the NFL right now, who are telling you that. And NFL owners keep saying, you know what? Yeah, I hear you. Doesn't matter to me. Not happening. Yeah. I mean, it's sickening. It's sickening. And if anybody has the right, or to me, a case to link on to Brian Flores' lawsuit as it relates to discriminatory hiring practices in the NFL, it is Eric Bieniemy. Period. Point blank.
Yeah. But DeMeco Ryans got hired. Yeah, we had a black president too. So if you're saying it at home, shut up. Meanwhile, I got one last thing for you. Michael and I have been talking about dynasty, and we asked you about Andy Reid. We talked about the field. We talked about the final play call. We talked about Patrick Mahomes. Just give us your biggest takeaway, other than your encounter with Rihanna. Did you look her in the eyes, by the way? Other than your encounter with Rihanna, what is your biggest takeaway from Super Bowl 57? Take that wherever you want to go.
Well, first off, I'm waiting on y'all. There's the video. That's my girl. You know? Thank you, boo. But anyway, my takeaway from this game was that we talk a lot about Patrick Mahomes. We talk a lot about Jalen Hurts, but I'm an old school guy, and I believe the football teams are built from the inside out. And what I saw, particularly in the second half of that game, I saw the Chiefs' offensive line take over that game. They rushed for only 30-plus yards in the first half. In the second half, they ran for 119. Why? In part, because when Patrick came up gimpy at the end of the first half in that locker room, they said, nobody touches him. And the best ways to protect him is by having an effective running game and keeping him clean in the pocket. He had only one incompletion in the second half, and that was a throwaway down in the end zone when everyone was covered. Exactly. So to me, the true heroes in that game were those guys up front on the Kansas City side who did their job. Because remember, 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, we all blamed them for that loss. We said Tampa Bay's defense did such a great job pressuring Patrick that he had the worst game of his career, didn't score an offensive touchdown for the first time in his career. They fixed it in a hurry. Brett Veach, their GM, deserves a lot of credit. And when I talked to the members of that unit after the game, they heard what we were all saying during the week. The Philly had the best pass rush in the NFL, maybe one of the best all time. First team with 4 defenders who had at least 10 sacks in a single season. All of them, they heard it. You know what they said to me after? We heard it. We don't want to hear it anymore. They said we had business to handle, and we handled it, and it was fine.
They deserve the globe.
Exactly.
Orlando Brown Jr., he deserves the globe. Yeah. Give it to him. Give him his props.
All of them.
Always great to hear from you, boo. We appreciate you.
All right. I don't mind calling him boo.
I'm not calling
hey, Trotter.
It didn't feel right.
Trotter, I call you boo.
It didn't sound right. It didn't feel right. It didn't sound right. It didn't feel right. That was one
got
time,
that
one
boo look.
time only, Jim.
No. You got that. Hey, Mike, he looks like a boo today with the hat on. That's
common.
Boo
One
Trotter.
day it'll all make sense.
Y'all ain't got to do it. As long as Riri did it, I'm good. Y'all are good. Y'all can call me Jim James, whatever you want. But as long as Riri said boo, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, if there was any doubters left, there shouldn't be now. I mean, the way he stepped up on this stage and ran through the ball, whatever it took for his team to win, I mean, that was a special performance that I don't want to get. I don't want it to get lost in the loss that they had. I mean, even whenever we got all the momentum in that game and we went up 8 points in the fourth quarter, for him to respond and move his team right down the football field and run it in himself for the 2-point conversion, it was a special performance by him, man. And I mean, you make sure you appreciate that when you look back on this game.
You want to cherish these moments. You want to cherish these moments with the people that you've come so far with. You know, your family, your loved ones, your teammates, your peers, everyone that you do it with and do it for. You know, and I'm so proud of this team. You know, I will say I'm so proud of this team for everything that we've been able to overcome. Obviously, we had a big-time goal in the end that we wanted to accomplish, and we came up short. You know, and I think the beautiful part about it is everyone experiences different pains, everyone experiences different agonies of life, but you decide if you want to learn from it. You decide if you want to use that to be a teachable moment, and I know what I'll do.
We were talking earlier about the Chiefs as a dynasty or dynasty in the making, however you want to call it. So as not to do what I usually do and get carried away, it wasn't that long ago when I was telling you that this was Joe Burrow's world, right? And Joe Burrow and the Bengals denied Kansas City another trip to the Super Bowl last year. And so, which would have made this four straight appearances if they'd have gone last year, if my math is right. So I say that to say, for all the talk about the Chiefs and how they were expertly built by Brett Veach and Andy Reid, the Eagles, had they finished yesterday, we'd be talking about whether this is the beginning of something special in Philadelphia. Or, just to bring it full circle, Michael, had a part-time official not thrown a ticky-tack flag. Who knows? And you talk about a team that's positioned for long-term success. I don't know what the hell Jerry Jones is talking about. The Eagles go to the Super Bowl, damn near win the Super Bowl, and now they turn their attention to picking 10th overall in the draft. Yeah. Along with, of course, their 31st pick. Howie Roseman is going to always have that cap in good shape. They got their franchise quarterback, which half the league is looking for one of those. They're just in such good position for the long term. So for all we know, the Eagles could be right back here. We may see these two teams as far as the rematch goes. I think they play each other this year. They may be the opening game of the NFL season in 2023. We may see both these teams back. Given the landscape of the AFC, one could argue that the Eagles are in a better position to get back here sooner than the Chiefs are. So they're going to be fine. I know it hurts today. It is not sunny in Philadelphia today. I know it hurts, no pun intended. But they have everything in place from a management standpoint, a coaching standpoint. We'll see if they lose one or both coordinators. But personnel standpoint and asset standpoint to be a factor and a player and maybe a participant in this game for many years to come. I told you, I voted him co-MVP last night. He balled out of his mind.
I wouldn't go co-MVP, but I think he was impressive. I think he was very impressive. And you look at this, this game, it was such a great. What's that?
Chuck Holley, not Chuck Holley. Who was it? It was Super Bowl 12. Who was it? Cowboys. I forgot. I used to know this stuff on the top of my head. The two Cowboys.
Earlier? It was Super Bowl 12.
So no,
was it
Super Bowl 12,
Harvey Martin?
Harvey Martin and White.
Randy White.
Last name. Randy White, Harvey Martin. Super Bowl 5 was Chuck Howley in defeat. Yes, he's the only losing Super Bowl MVP. The co-MVP.
That Jim O'Brien field goal at the end. So
Super Bowl 12 against Denver was co-MVPs on the part of the Cowboys. But go ahead, you were saying.
I would say this though. Look, this game last night, you had two great quarterbacking performances, and then last year, the losing quarterback in the Super Bowl was also great, Joe Burrow. And so we talk about like who's the next Tom Brady and all this stuff, like where's quarterbacking going? I think that's the wrong conversation. I think a more realistic conversation is looking at 20 years of Tom Brady, 20 plus years of Brady. So a lot of these guys grew up watching him. It's like anything else. Once you see the standard in place, now you've got a compass for where you want to go. You've got a bar, you can meet the bar, you can try to exceed the bar, or you can expand it. And I think these quarterbacks now, all in their 20s, have grown up on Tom Brady. They're not like him, but maybe they're doing more than Tom Brady ever did. I'm talking about in terms of playing style, not necessarily championships. So Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. I think quarterbacking in the league is in really good hands, and I'm excited to see where it goes next.
Just got to get the officiating and the field conditions there, right? I knew you were hot. I saw you typing in the Google Doc last night. I'm like, oh, Lord, he gonna make it about this holding call. Oh, I knew you was hot about that.
You know it was a bad call. You know it. I understand. I mean, it wasn't the only thing, but it was bad.
I didn't love it.
It ruined it. Get out the cipher, bro. Get out the cipher. You ain't ready? Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.